Joining us on the line now, Joe DiGenova, the WMAL legal analyst, good friend of this program. And Joe, before we get any further, I want to run a little clip from last night's 60-minute piece on Benghazi. This is Laura Logan talking to your client, Greg Hicks, about a very difficult conversation that Greg Hicks, the number 2 diplomat in Benghazi, had to make during the attack.
You have this conversation with the defense attaché. You ask him what military assets are on their way, and he says,
effectively, they're not. And for a moment, I just felt lost. I just couldn't believe the answer. And then I made the call to the NX chief. I told him, listen, you've got to tell those guys there may not be any help coming.
That's a tough thing to understand. Why?
It just is. For us, for the people that go out onto the edge to represent our country, we believe that if we get in trouble, they're coming to get us. That our back is covered. To hear that it's not, it's a terrible, terrible experience.
So, Joe DiGenova, there is your client. Others who spoke were actually on the ground during the attack, said there was no doubt in their mind it was well coordinated, it was sophisticated, and that it was Al-Qaeda. Your thoughts about this 60-minute piece?
Well, first of all, Greg was represented by Victoria Tunsing, not by me, but Greg represents the finest that the United States has to offer. And let me also say that 60 Minutes and Laura Logan deserve a tremendous amount of credit for not giving up on this story. And let me just tell you something. They're not going away. There's going to be more. They're working on this. What Greg said is what the story has always been about. This was known from the very beginning by the president, by Hillary Clinton, by Leon Panetta, by everybody in the White House in the intelligence operations, that Benghazi was a death trap for the Americans who were there, and nothing was done about it. And what has been the result of it? The position of the Democrats has been to mock this as a phony scandal, straight from the president and Jay Carney, a phony scandal. There's nothing phony about the deaths of 4 Americans. What they testified to and what that showed is that this was such a serious breach of the bond between government employees and their government that the military is sick to its stomach about this. It is disgusting that the administration continues to play this down and gives the kind of mocking answers at the State Department from the Valley Girls who now stand up and speak on behalf of the Department of State. Greg Hicks is a hero because he told the truth.
Yes.
He did the easiest thing in the world, except it's the hardest thing when you work for this administration, because if you tell the truth, they turn on you. Remember, these are the Democrats, the liberals, the lefties, who love government employees until the government employees tell the truth.
For those who may not know, Victoria Tunsing is your partner in law and your partner in life as well. But tell us very quickly what happened to Greg Hicks and where he is now.
Greg was summarily rebuked by Cheryl Mills and Beth Jones. Cheryl Mills, of course, was Hillary Clinton's chief of staff when he complained about the comments and the cover-up story that was done afterwards, and complained about Susan Rice and how embarrassing her 5 appearances were. He was put into an office at the State Department with no work to do and was told that his career was over. And I want to praise Senator Lindsey Graham for what he did. After these hearings and after Greg's testimony, Lindsey Graham took it upon himself to make sure that there was no ultimate retaliation against Greg, and he helped Greg land a tenure at the CSIS Institute, where Greg is now on a sabbatical from the State Department. Lindsey Graham, to us, is a hero. He never stopped fighting for Greg Hicks.
Hey, Joe DiGenova, can I just ask? I know that you're not you're a legal analyst. You're not a political analyst, but I'm curious. You're already seeing MSNBC. You're seeing Chris Matthews and Ed Schultz over the weekend. They attacked Dick Cheney because Dick Cheney went on a radio show and pointed to Benghazi as a reason why Hillary Clinton should never be the commander-in-chief. And boy, oh boy, are they running interference and defense. They attacked Cheney for suggesting that Hillary Clinton actually wasn't a stellar leader in the Benghazi affair. What do you think the Republicans' angle should be here? What is the best way to go about this? Because they are circling the wagons.
Well, ultimately, this is about Hillary's run for the presidency, but in the meantime, it's important that people realize that there is more to learn about Benghazi. Panetta has never told the full story. Here's an interesting question. Remember General Ham and what happened the night of the assault on the American embassy? We have reason to believe that things happened that night in the chain of command where people were relieved of their duties because they insisted that there be a military response. We're working on trying to establish that with some news organizations, but there's very, very good evidence that people were actually relieved of commands because they refused not to try and dispatch troops and some response. And by the way, this notion that the administration has put out, it's this little straw man that military couldn't have landed in Libya. Greg Hicks has testified, and so have some other military people, that if there had only been a flyover, that would have dispersed these crowds because they remembered what the American military did with its flyovers and its assault. There were planes in Croatia that could have been there by the time of the attack on the annex, and no planes were ever sent. And that was because the President of the United States refused to issue an order allowing for the dispersal of military into Libya because that was considered an act of war. The President himself, who went to sleep, refused to issue some order. And, you know, Panetta is not a bad man. He knows what went wrong that night. He's never been properly questioned about this and pressed. And if he were, he would admit all of this stuff.
Yeah, Panetta's book should be interesting to read. Where's that book?
God help us. You can't cross-examine a book.
All right, Joe DiGenova, thanks for joining. Hey, really quickly, you have a problem with the idea of Bravehearts, Washington Bravehearts?
I love it. I think it's an impressive
but hold on.
thing.
Hold on. We shorten Redskins and call them the Skins. So what happens when we shorten Bravehearts and call them the Braves? Now, you know, your clients are still going to be angry at that.
Don't blame me.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
Okay, guys.
Thanks,